Welcome back to the deep dive. If you feel like your communication style is sort of stuck on just describing information, but what you really want to do is start persuading, articulating, really synthesizing complex ideas with genuine authority, then you are in exactly the right place. Today, we are not just giving you a vocabulary list. That's not the goal here. We have gone through and meticulously extracted a curriculum that's all about elevating academic language.
Right.
We're targeting 10 very specific high-leverage concepts. So think of this deep dive as, a workout for your intellectual lexicon.
I like that, a linguistic toolkit.
Exactly, a toolkit designed to separate that functional everyday communication from, truly sophisticated high-impact discourse.
And that separation, that difference, it's about so much more than just style, isn't it?
Absolutely.
For you listening, precision is power. It's not about just sounding smart or, using big words for the sake of it. It's about minimizing the margin of error when you're trying to convey a really nuanced idea. If you're synthesizing a ton of information or maybe drafting a critical policy memo, the language you use has to carry the full weight of your understanding.
That's a great way to put it, the full weight.
Yeah, and these specific concepts, they act as knowledge accelerators. They let you compress these really complex thoughts into precise, credible language.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty intensive. We're going to define these 10 points. We'll explore their deeper semantic contexts and analyze how to use them structurally.
And give real-world examples.
And provide those detailed contextual examples you need to move them from just, recognizing them when you read to actually using them in your active speaking and writing.
Yes.
This is about mastery.
Not just memorization.
Exactly.
All right. Let's master the language of insight. Step by step.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll start with terms that really define scale and effect. And let's begin with, I think, one of the most powerful verbs you'll find in policy or strategy documents. Mitigate. What does this word truly convey in an academic setting? And, why is it so much stronger than its simpler cousins like reduce or lessen?
Well, the core definition of mitigate is, to make something less severe, less serious, or less painful. That's the textbook answer.
Right.
But its function in sophisticated discourse is so much more strategic. I mean, it's profound. When you use mitigate, you're signaling a very sophisticated understanding that the threat or the problem you're talking about is often systemic.
Systemic.
Inherent, maybe.
Inherent, unavoidable.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the action you're describing isn't about removal.
Yeah.
It's not about solving it. It's about structured, calculated control.
That is a crucial distinction. I mean, if I read that a team solved a traffic problem, I'm going to assume the problem is gone for good.
Yeah, no more traffic.
But if I read that they mitigated traffic congestion, I understand that the underlying system causing the traffic, the number of cars, the road design, that's all still there.
It's still there. But the impact has been reduced through some kind of intervention.
So mitigation implies a proactive strategy. It's a formal intervention designed specifically to reduce the probability or the scale or even just the duration of a negative impact.
So let's contrast that with reduce. I mean, if I reduce my sugar intake, that feels like a small personal action.
It is. But if a city government says they're going to mitigate the impact of future pandemics, well, that's a whole different scale.
Right. You're talking millions of dollars.
Millions, maybe billions. They're investing in complex infrastructure, they're stockpiling medical supplies, building surge capacity in hospitals, creating rapid testing protocols. It signifies a comprehensive risk management approach.
Not just turning down the volume on a problem.
Precisely. You're not just turning down the volume, you're building a whole new soundproofing system. So using mitigate inherently places the whole discussion at a higher, more strategic level. It acknowledges that there are persistent threats out there and that we need a managed response.
Can we dig into some real-world examples?
Yeah.
Where is this word just? Non-negotiable.
Oh, absolutely. Think about environmental policy. That's a huge one. We don't really talk about eliminating climate change, do we?
No, unfortunately not. The conversation is always about how to manage it.
Exactly. It's about efforts to mitigate its effects. And this involves everything from, implementing comprehensive flood defenses, which, again, don't stop the rain.
They just divert the water.
They divert the water. To investing in carbon capture technologies designed to mitigate atmospheric pollution. The word itself carries the technical weight of a cost-benefit analysis of systemic failure points.
I see it paired with risk all the time. Companies are always talking about mitigating financial risk through diversification. And if they were just reducing risk, it might imply, I don't know, a temporary tactical move, like selling off a volatile stock.
Right, a short-term fix.
But mitigating risk suggests they're embedding structural defenses into the business model itself.
That is the strategic heart of the word. And there's another layer too. Mitigation always implies the presence of residual risk.
Residual risk, what do you mean by that?
I mean, even after you put all your mitigation measures in place, your flood defenses, your financial diversification, some level of damage or loss is still possible.
The threat isn't zero.
Never zero. Sophisticated communication acknowledges this permanence. Simpler language often implies, total victory over the problem. So using mitigate automatically signals to your audience that you're operating with this really complex understanding of persistent threats.
Okay, that's incredibly clear. Let's move on to an adjective that carries, I think, just a tremendous amount of weight in reports and research. Significant. We see people use this constantly. I mean, it's everywhere, often in places where they should have just used big or important.
Yeah.
How do we explain its full academic dual meaning?
We have to tackle that dual nature right away. Its power lies in its precise academic applications, which are, so much more than its general conversational use.
Okay, so what's meaning number one?
The first, more general meaning is about importance and consequence. So something is highly important or consequential, or just worthy of immediate attention. But even here, in its formal use, it implies a weight that's far greater than just important.
So not just important, but critical.
Critical to the outcome or essential to the narrative, yes.
But the second meaning, that's the real academic linchpin, isn't it? The one connected to measurement.
That's the one, exactly. The second, and often more rigorous meaning, is about measurable size or statistical validity.
Right.
Here, significant means something is large enough or important enough to be considered valid, or, more to the point, unlikely to have occurred just by chance.
This is where we get into statistical significance.
This is the domain of statistical significance. It's how researchers signaled that their findings warrant attention because they pass a certain mathematical threshold, like a p-value.
So it's not a subjective judgment. It's a declaration backed by data.
Absolutely. When a researcher calls a finding significant, they're making a formal declaration to the entire scientific community that the effect or the difference they found is substantial and reliable. It's big enough to merit scientific attention and often, future funding.
It's an intellectual declaration.
It is, and that is why it's so vital in any kind of structured writing. Using significant provides this necessary weight to your claim. It basically signals to the reader, stop here, pay attention. This piece of information isn't just secondary detail, it's the crucial evidence that supports my entire hypothesis.
Okay, but I want to push back on that a little because the word is so pervasive now, it's everywhere. In mainstream media, in marketing. If I read a news report that says, the poll showed a significant lead for candidate X, how often are they actually using that statistically rigorous definition versus, just a general big or newsworthy definition?
That is an excellent question. And that's where you, the learner, have to become a critical reader. In popular media, significant is often, diluted. It's just used as an intensifier.
Right. A fancy very.
A fancy very, exactly. However, if you are reading an academic journal or an investor report or a legal brief, you have to assume the writer intends the rigorous meaning. If a company reports a significant increase in profits, they are claiming an increase that's substantial enough to merit changes in investment strategy, not just a marginal bump.
So the writer is using that word as a kind of ethical contract with the reader.
That's a perfect way to put it. An ethical contract. And because of that, mastering significant also means mastering when not to use it. If everything in your high-level synthesis is significant, then you haven't actually done the hard work of prioritization. Nothing stands out.
So what's the alternative? If it's just a small but positive change?
Well, if you're describing a small but positive adjustment, you could use noteworthy or marginal. If the point is truly central to your entire argument, maybe you use crucial or paramount. The mark of a confident communicator is ensuring their choice of synonym aligns exactly with the degree of importance. You have to reserve the full power of significant for those points that truly meet both criteria, consequence, and measurable size.
Okay, here's where we get into really refining the texture of your writing. We're moving away from measuring consequence and more towards detailing quality and speed. So why is it just absolutely critical for anyone aiming for high-level communication to replace simple adjectives like good or bad?
Because To be blunt, simple adjectives are fundamentally vague. I'd even say they're analytically lazy.
Haha, okay. Analytically lazy. I like that.
They are. They lack precision and specificity, which is really the cornerstone of academic rigor. When we say a policy decision was good, what do we even mean?
Right. Good for whom? Good in what way?
Exactly. Was it economically sound? Was it ethically judicious? Was it technically optimal? We don't know. We're forcing the reader to guess, to infer the metric we used for our evaluation.
And when you're synthesizing different sources, relying on inference is just. It's dangerous. The quality of your analysis has to be explicit in your word choice.
It has to be. Academic or any kind of formal writing demands that specificity. The choice of the precise synonym demonstrates the analytical lens you've applied to the problem. Let's really expand on the examples here.
Okay.
So instead of a good solution, we need to choose based on the type of goodness. If the solution maximizes efficiency, maybe for an engineering problem,
You'd use an optimal solution.
optimal solution.
Yeah.
If it's morally or legally sound, maybe in a legal context,
A judicious or ethical resolution.
perfect. And if it just works really reliably in practice, it's an effective remedy. Each of those words tells a completely different story about why it was good.
I love how the different synonyms imply different branches of analysis. Like you said, optimal is for engineers and economists. Judicious is for legal scholars and political scientists.
Exactly, and the same goes for bad. We have an even greater need for specificity there. If the outcome caused measurable damage, what would you say?
A detrimental outcome. It implies harm or loss.
Detrimental.
Yeah.
Perfect. If it was just against the desired result or the expectation,
And adverse consequence.
adverse consequence. If it was just fundamentally flawed or poorly executed, it might be a suboptimal strategy. And in political analysis, if it corrupted the process, it could be a corrosive or even a pernicious effect.
That layering is fantastic. Using detrimental versus adverse is a difference between saying this failed and it cost us money versus this failed and it actively worked against our overall goals.
Exactly.
That specificity shows a much deeper understanding of the subject matter. You know the exact nature of the flaw.
And that's the goal. Linguistic maturity. It tells your reader or your listener that you have evaluated the subject against multiple potential criteria, technical, ethical, economic, and you've chosen the word that most accurately reports the result of that evaluation.
It elevates the discussion from just an opinion to a real objective analysis.
That's the key.
Okay, so moving from quality to the refinement of movement and process. Let's look at adverbs. We all use the word quickly constantly in daily life. What are some more academic synonyms for it, and how does using them actually improve the overall formality and tone of high-stakes communication?
Well, quickly is perfectly clear. There's nothing wrong with it in conversation, but in formal texts, it can break the sophisticated register. It almost feels like an afterthought sometimes.
A bit jarring.
A bit jarring. We need synonyms that convey speed, but also suggest a sense of efficiency or structure.
Okay, so what's the go-to?
The most common and useful academic alternative, especially when you're discussing evolution or change over time, is rapidly.
Yeah.
It's used constantly in fields like climate science. The planet is warming rapidly. Or in technology. The field is evolving rapidly.
That does sound more authoritative, but what about when we're talking about human action or, bureaucracy?
That's where the precision comes in. If you're discussing processes or administrative action or some kind of prompt implementation, the superior synonym is expeditiously.
Expeditiously.
This word carries the implication of speed that's achieved through deliberate efficiency and planning. For example, the committee reviewed the proposal expeditiously. You wouldn't really use rapidly there,
Why not?
because the speed is tied to the promptness of the human action, not some inherent pace of change.
I see. So using expeditiously in a policy report suggests not just that they were fast, but that they were fast and efficient, that they maintained proper protocol while still accelerating the timeline.
You've got it. That's exactly it. And this analysis of improvement is key. Using these synonyms helps maintain a consistent, formal, authoritative tone. Plus, they just link much better stylistically with more complex verbs.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure, consider. The agency worked quickly to approve the funds. It's fine. It's clear.
Okay.
Now, compare it to the agency approved the funds expeditiously. The second one immediately suggests the writer is operating within the formal register you'd expect for high-level regulatory or administrative analysis.
I really see the difference. That small change in the adverb elevates the perceived authority of the whole sentence because it reinforces the formality of the subject. the agency, the committee, the market.
Yes, it signals confidence and control over the specific dynamics you're describing. These subtle shifts in descriptors are absolutely fundamental to moving beyond a basic language skill set and into the realm of, professional level synthesis.
Now we're going to shift our focus to describing the quality of information itself, and then we'll get into the critical nature of resource availability. Let's start with quality control. If you describe a study or a report or a literature review as comprehensive, what exactly does that tell us about the quality and the scope of that work?
Comprehensive is a critical endorsement. It's a huge stamp of approval. It signals excellence in both research design and execution.
Okay.
It defines work as including all, or at least nearly all, necessary elements or aspects of the subject matter. It means the work is thorough, it's systematic, and it's demonstrably complete.
So it's not just that it has a lot of information in it. It's not just a long report.
Not at all. It means the author consciously executed a methodology that was designed to account for the full breadth of relevant variables and data.
I see.
The power of the word comprehensive really lies in what it excludes. It excludes selective research or superficial analysis or the convenient omission of conflicting data.
Right.
When this word is applied to a study, it implies that the research covered a wide range of relevant variables, methodologies, or data points that are necessary to draw robust, reliable conclusions.
Can you give us an example?
Of course. Think about due diligence in business. If a consulting firm promises a comprehensive analysis of a new market, what do you expect?
Everything. I expect them to have looked at regulatory hurdles, the competitive landscape, supply chain logistics, consumer demographics, the whole picture.
Exactly. And failure to cover any one of those relevant aspects means the analysis is merely partial, not comprehensive.
So that implication of completeness is what suggests reliability and trustworthiness. If I read a comprehensive review of a new medical protocol, I trust that the writer has examined not just the successful trials, but also the failures, the long-term side effects, and the alternatives. It's like an implicit promise of scholarly integrity.
It acts as a very powerful, high-level stamp of approval in any kind of academic critique. And what's more, it forces the writer to be meticulous. If you claim your report is comprehensive, you have to be ready to defend the inclusion of every relevant element and, just as importantly, the exclusion of any irrelevant ones.
That's a very high bar to set for your own work.
A very high bar.
So if the research is only focused on one specific area, say the economic impact of a policy, it would be a detailed or an in-depth analysis, but not comprehensive because it omitted the environmental or social facets.
That is a perfect distinction. That's absolutely correct. Comprehensive suggests breadth of coverage across all relevant components.
Whereas detailed suggests depth.
Depth within a more limited scope. Both are necessary and valuable, but they are not the same thing.
Okay, let's move to the opposite end of the spectrum now. From describing completeness to describing availability or the lack thereof, the word is scarce.
What does it mean, and in what specific situations would you use this word to reflect a high-level policy or economic understanding?
Scarce, especially in an economic or environmental discussion, means something is insufficient for the demand.
Okay, insufficient for the demand.
While it does imply that something is rare or hard to find, its true academic meaning implies a fundamental economic tension, and usually a societal problem. I think that word tension is the absolute key here. It's the differentiator between academic language and everyday speech.
It is.
It's not just that something is infrequent, but that the existing supply is insufficient to meet the needs or the wants of a population, which then leads to difficult choices.
Exactly. I mean, scarcity is the bedrock of economics. The word is used in very specific contexts that relate directly to allocation and resource management. We talk about natural resources becoming scarce, like, specific isotopes used in medicine, or arable land in rapidly developing regions.
That's just about low quantity in those cases.
No, it's about a supply that cannot meet the needs of growth or consumption. It creates a structural problem.
What about applying it to human capital? Can skills be scarce?
Oh, absolutely. That's a classic example. We often discuss the scarcity of specialized labor, say, experts in advanced AI algorithms or deep sea engineering. That scarcity is what drives up the value and the cost of that labor.
Right.
And similarly, we apply it to policy problems like the supply of affordable housing in major cities, where the supply is structurally scarce relative to the demand.
So let's nail down that distinction we touched on earlier. Why is a rare antique coin rare, but affordable housing is scarce?
The difference is one of systemic tension and opportunity cost. The coin is rare. Its low quantity doesn't create a societal crisis or a big allocation dilemma.
Right, some collectors disappointed, but that's about it.
Exactly. But housing or clean water or specialized skills, those things are scarce. Their insufficient supply relative to demand creates market failures, it drives inflation, it necessitates government intervention, and it forces very difficult societal trade-offs.
I see. So scarcity implies that when one person gets the resource, another person necessarily misses out.
Yes, which is why it's so central to policy conflict and debate. So using the word scarce immediately places your discussion within that rigorous framework of supply-demand mechanics, resource allocation, and policy intervention. It tells the listener that you recognize the problem is systemic, not just incidental.
Right. It transforms a simple description of "there's not enough" into a statement about inherent economic and political constraints.
Correct. And that's a huge leap in analytical depth.
We've really cemented the necessity of precision in our nouns and adjectives. Now let's focus on the verbs, the action centers of formal writing. Many writers constantly default to the generic verb reduce.
All the time.
What are 2 or 3 stronger, more impactful alternatives they can use, and how does the context of the sentence determine the optimal choice?
I think reduce is the linguistic equivalent of a Swiss Army knife.
How so?
Well, it does many things adequately, but it does nothing with true specialization.
I like that analogy.
And high-level writing demands specialization. Your writing strength increases dramatically when you choose a verb that precisely describes how the reduction is happening or what is being acted upon. Let's focus on 3 really powerful alternatives: curtail, alleviate, and diminish.
Okay, let's dedicate some real time to breaking down the specific domains for each of these. Where does curtail live?
Curtail is primarily used when you're describing the limiting of something or the imposing of restrictions, particularly on activities or a budget or rights or freedoms.
So there's a sense of force to it.
Yes, it often implies that an external actor is imposing a forceful boundary. A legislature might curtail certain campaign spending practices. A company in a tough fiscal year might have to curtail its R&D budget. The focus is on a conscious, purposeful restriction or limitation.
So you curtail consumption, activity, or scope. It implies an external, often governing force applying a hard stop or a significant reduction.
Exactly. Now let's compare that to alleviate.
Okay.
Alleviate means specifically to make suffering or a deficiency or a problem less severe. It has a connotation of relief, usually for conditions that cause some kind of distress.
So it's about making a bad situation better.
Precisely. You alleviate poverty through social programs. You alleviate a patient's symptoms with medication. You alleviate congestion at a border crossing with new technology. The object of the verb is typically a hardship or a negative state.
Right. And you would never say you curtailed symptoms or you alleviated the budget. The semantic connection is absolutely vital. So where does diminish fit in?
A diminish is a bit broader and often more subtle than the other two. It refers to a general reduction in size or importance or power over time. It often implies a kind of erosion rather than a sudden policy decision.
It's more of a gradual process.
Often, yes. For instance, you could say, the persistent attacks on the CEO diminished his public credibility. Or over decades, the influence of the regional council has slowly diminished. It often describes a reduction in more abstract qualities like importance, influence, or power.
This analysis of choice is so critical. For you listening, if you're describing fiscal policy, you have to choose the verb that fits the object. You curtail spending, you alleviate economic hardship, and a policy's failure diminishes public trust.
Exactly. That congruence between the verb and its object is what signals high-level competence and credibility. Without that congruence, the writing just sounds forced or incorrect, even if the basic definition of reduce is technically met.
Mastering this means recognizing that these verbs are context-specific. They're not just interchangeable.
Not at all.
Okay, let's shift this concept of strengthening language into the crucial process of synthesis, which so often involves paraphrasing. Let's take a simple observation. People are becoming more interested in renewable energy.
A very common, simple sentence.
How can we paraphrase that phrase in a far more academic, objective, and authoritative way?
This is a perfect exercise. It demonstrates how to activate multiple high-leverage linguistic techniques all at once. And the most critical technique here is something called nominalization.
Nominalization.
Yes, the simple sentence is informal and it's action-driven. Our goal is to transform it into something that sounds objective, formal, and suitable for, say, a research finding.
Okay, so give us a strong paraphrase.
A strong formal paraphrase leveraging these techniques would be something like, public engagement concerning renewable energy solutions is escalating.
Wow.
Or perhaps, a burgeoning enthusiasm among the populace for sustainable energy technologies has been observed.
The transformation is dramatic. I mean, that sounds like something pulled directly from a high-level policy brief or an economic outlook report.
That's the goal.
Let's systematically deconstruct the techniques you used, starting with nominalization. What is that?
Nominalization is the process of converting verbs, adjectives, or adverbs into nouns. So instead of focusing on the actor people are interested, we focus on the phenomenon itself.
Public engagement.
Enthusiasm.
Exactly. The original sentence uses the verb phrase, are becoming more interested. By using nominalization, we create the abstract noun, engagement, or enthusiasm, and we make that the subject of the sentence.
And that immediately removes the actor, the people, and creates a more objective tone.
Which is absolutely key to academic synthesis. You're no longer talking about Sean and Jane's personal feelings. You're talking about a measurable social variable. That structural shift is massive. Instead of people are, we now have the concept engagement as the primary subject. What about the verbs themselves?
Well, we replace that simple sort of passive verb phrase, are becoming more interested, with much stronger, more formal verbs. We chose escalating, which implies a measurable, steep increase, often used for trends or tensions.
Or burgeoning.
Or burgeoning, which suggests growth, development, and expansion like a plant growing. These verbs carry a specific analytical weight that becoming completely lacks.
And finally, the vocabulary itself is upgraded. Interested becomes formal synonyms like enthusiasm or engagement, and renewable energy becomes renewable energy solutions or sustainable energy technologies.
The entire shift takes the focus off the individual actors, the people, and places it onto the generalized, quantifiable social or market phenomenon, the trend, the engagement. This structural and vocabulary upgrade transforms a simple observation into a complex variable that's suitable for rigorous analysis. Mastery of nominalization, in particular, is one of the clearest signs of real linguistic sophistication.
We've covered verbs, modifiers, advanced structural techniques. Now we need to focus on how these high-impact words actually fit into formal sentence construction. Let's talk structural integrity. Let's tackle the adjective beneficial. Can you create a robust sentence using this word to describe a positive change in education, and then tell us why the structure works so well?
Absolutely. When constructing a sentence with beneficial, we want clarity, force, and a very precise attribution of the positive outcome.
Okay.
So here is a strong, structurally sound example. The implementation of tailored mentoring programs has proven profoundly beneficial for minimizing student dropout rates.
That is authoritative language. That sounds great. What are the structural elements that you, listening, should immediately notice and try to emulate?
First, notice the modification. We use a strong, high-level adverb profoundly to emphasize the degree of the benefit.
Right. It's not just a little beneficial.
Exactly. It avoids that vague, weak sense. Adverbs are excellent tools for modulating the intensity of your claims in formal writing. They give you precision.
Okay, what's the second point?
Second, and this is most critical for structural accuracy, is the proper use of prepositions. The word beneficial is almost always followed by a preposition, typically for or sometimes to. That structure, beneficial for X or beneficial to Y, directly links the subject, in our case, the mentoring programs, to the positive outcome, which was minimizing dropout rates.
So it provides that clarity on causality without needing a really complicated causal verb structure. It's an economical and powerful way to attribute a positive effect.
It serves as a key structural tool for attribution. And furthermore, we should contrast beneficial with a similar high-level synonym like advantageous.
They seem similar. What's the difference?
They're related, but different. Beneficial means generally helpful or resulting in good. Advantageous usually implies providing an advantage or a competitive edge over others.
So one is more zero-sum than the other.
That's a great way to think about it. A new law might be beneficial for all citizens, but a trade deal is often only advantageous for one of the negotiating parties. Precision in context demands that careful selection.
That's a common pitfall, I imagine. The idea that something can be beneficial to society as a whole, but only advantageous to a few specific actors within it.
Exactly. Understanding that nuance ensures the right word is deployed to reflect the specific outcome being measured, which, again, elevates your analytical credibility.
Okay, finally, let's discuss a crucial detail that really separates fluent, native-like language from highly capable but, slightly clumsy language. The concept is collocation.
Very important.
Which verb commonly collocates with measures? Is it make, take, do, or give? And why is choosing the right fixed expression so vital for your credibility?
The standard fixed idiomatic phrase is to take measures. There's no question about it.
To take measures.
And the reason this is so vital ties back to that idea of fluency and credibility. Collocation refers to the habitual co-occurrence of words. They're just words that live together naturally in the language.
Word partnerships.
Word partnerships established by linguistic custom. Using the wrong collocation, like saying, the government made necessary measures to increase efficiency, or the team did steps to improve the process, it immediately breaks the natural flow of the language.
That's the fluency bottleneck we talked about.
Yeah.
You can have a huge, sophisticated vocabulary, but if you put the words together in an unnatural way, that lack of fluency undermines your perceived authority, even if your meaning is generally understood.
Precisely. The goal in high-level communication is not merely to be understood, but to sound accurate and integrated into the language register you're using. Saying make measures is understandable, sure, but it signals non-native usage.
Whereas saying take measures.
Saying take measures demonstrates automatic, native-like accuracy.
Can you give us a few other quick examples of crucial academic collocations that should be internalized right alongside take measures?
Certainly. This is so practical. Think about research. You don't do research, you conduct research.
Conduct research.
Right. You don't get data, you acquire data or you collect data. When you analyze information, you don't get conclusions, you draw conclusions.
Draw conclusions.
And when a policy has a positive result, a country makes strides in addressing poverty. They don't do strides. These fixed pairings ensure the language flow is seamless. It enhances the credibility of the writer or speaker instantly. It suggests they are fully immersed in the register they're using. Precision in this kind of fixed language is really the final, essential layer of linguistic mastery. So, to synthesize the expansive territory we've covered today, the 10 points we explored, from mitigating systemic risk and understanding statistical significance, all the way to employing specialized verbs like curtail and recognizing the necessity of collocations like take measures, they're all about one thing. They're all about replacing descriptive ambiguity with analytical precision.
I think that's right. True knowledge mastery doesn't just end with acquiring facts. It requires having the linguistic tools ready to express that knowledge accurately, forcefully, and with nuance. These 10 words and usage points are powerful accelerators for informed discourse. They really act as shortcuts to conveying strategic depth.
And if you are looking to truly excel in synthesis or critical analysis or high-level reporting, then integrating words like comprehensive, detrimental, and escalating, and knowing their precise usage structure, that will fundamentally transform your ability to process and transmit complex information effectively. This isn't just about vocabulary. It's the architecture of advanced thought.
We focus so intensely today on words that define scale, impact, and strategic action. So for your next step, we want to leave you with this final provocative thought to encourage you to apply this immediately. Consider the next 3 reports or articles you read today. How often do the authors rely on vague language like good or reduce? And how could you, as a critical reader and communicator, instantly rephrase their main arguments using this new high-leverage vocabulary? Could you actively look for the significant evidence and then formulate precise language to help you take measures to better synthesize and articulate what you've just learned?
Because the depth of your thinking is often limited only by the depth of your vocabulary.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the language of insight.
Until next time.